Everybody wants to have a better relationship with their children. Can you find a way to guide your child to adult-level skills and abilities while maintaining a strong and positive relationship that can carry you both through the rest of your lives? Well, let's find out today on the Just 7 Steps podcast. Hi, I'm Robert Schramm, a behavior analyst, education specialist, author, and dad. And each week I share strategies to help you find the path to real progress for your kids who may be struggling. Today's topic is all about the important aspects involved in building a better relationship with your children. So if you want more videos just like this one, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all of my new releases. I know you want to have a great relationship with your kids. Everyone does. But sometimes that can seem very hard to do when you realize how much you have to teach them and help them learn to accept in life that may not always line up with their immediate desires or even hopes for themselves. Children are certainly unfinished products that need incredible amounts of help and guidance as they grow. When babies, they rely on you for absolutely everything from food to warmth to brain stimulation. They can't make it in the real world or the full world without you. As they grow into toddlers, your roles start to change as they become to communicate their wants and desires and start to develop some independence. Childhood brings with it the largest learning expectations from reading and writing to learning to meet responsibilities. Then there's the teen years where the independence bug begins to once again rear its ugly head. Finding a way to get your child successfully through all of these phases of development while still being able to maintain a strong positive relationship is the biggest challenge you will face as a parent. Some will tell you that the secret to better relationships with your children comes down to being more permissive with them, not focusing so much on what you want from them, but on what you can offer them instead, being a friend, a confidant, and a safe space for them. They recommend that you focus on your attachment over all else. And although it is true that building and maintaining a strong positive relationship with your kids is crucially important, focusing solely on attachment and being willing to bend and give in to your child's every want and desire as they grow is fraught with pitfalls and a recipe for failure, both in helping your kids develop the skills they need and in creating a healthy, positive parent-child relationship. My kids have grown up with a dad and a mom who truly understand the principles of behavior and have used them in guiding their relationships with others for a number of years. Because of this, we have a set of tools and even a blueprint to developing relationships that both help us get our needs met, but also maintain a strong, positive connection. Sometimes that means we can be more permissive than other parents. And now that our kids are in their early teens, 14 and 12, we know we can give them a lot of freedoms that other parents aren't comfortable giving their children. But this is not because we've been permissive or focused solely on attachment with them. In fact, I would argue that it is our ability to set fair and consistent boundaries and to be successful in following through with meaningful consequences when necessary that allows us to be more permissive and still give them the tools they need for their independence and self-care. Others will say that the key to parenting is to be strict with your children. Never let them get away with anything. Hold them to high expectations and keep the pressure on them when they step out of line. And again, although it is true that I believe we need to be consistent with our kids and be willing to back up our words with our actions, it is a falsehood to think that one needs to be looked at as strict to get cooperation or authoritarian to teach kids what they need to learn. In fact, the real danger with being strict for strict's sake is the toll it can take on your child's feelings towards you, and in some cases, affect how they feel about themselves. Now, I've known and even been called in to work with parents who are on the opposite ends of this strict permissive spectrum. And I've seen how both approaches, as well-meaning as they are, can be problematic to the child development, both in regards to what they learn to do and become, and to how they feel about their parents and the child-parent relationship that develops from it. I've seen attachment parents give and give and give of themselves to their children, showing them love and attention and trying hard to never say no, only to end up with kids growing to become extremely rude and disrespectful to them and controlling to others in their lives. I've seen overly strict and demanding parents fight and battle for every inch of territory from their kids, only to end up with kids who hide things from them, avoid them, and even say that they hate them. The truth to successful relationship development with your kids does not lie in the extremes, but in the healthy application of balance. The willingness to prioritize positivity and fun in your relationships while still having the ability to get expectations met and goals achieved. It's not uncommon for me to meet families who have one parent who is very permissive and the other who is very strict. I've seen families where kids have one parent who they like and spend time with, but who they control and don't cooperate with, and the other who they dislike and avoid, but they're willing to do what they need to based on what that parent demands. Either option, in my opinion, is far from optimal. You shouldn't have to choose between having a child who loves you and wants to be with you and having one who is willing to learn from you and cooperate with your important demands when necessary. It truly is possible to have both, and you should be able to get there without having to raise your voice or nag your kids or give in on things that you think are important. I would argue that there are several secrets to building better relationships with your children. But before we talk about these secrets, we need to define what a better relationship is. For me, the definition of a good parent-child relationship is one where there is a strong balance between cooperation and fun. Each family member sees themselves as a teammate, helping the family to meet their collective goals. Individuals are generally able to get all of their needs met as well as many of their wants, but are attuned into the needs and wants of the group as well, and are willing to give up some of their own wants when the needs of the group become incompatible with them. To put it another way, kids should have a healthy respect for their parents, but also like them and find them to be a source of warmth, love, and support. And parents should have a healthy respect for their children's goals and perspective, while still finding the necessary ways to get them to learn and develop important skills. I know that I have a pretty good relationship with my two daughters. We don't always see eye to eye on everything, of course, and sometimes they get mad at me and my wife. But the relationship is strong and remains strong for a few very important reasons. So let's discuss the path to progress for you in creating a better relationship with your children. First, you need to be willing to remind yourself to be someone worth being with and being around. And how do you do that? Well, to some degree, this just involves being a good person to your child, engaging in things that they like, talk honestly with them about your hopes and your dreams, invite them into conversations about important things in the family, and show them that more than anything else, you care about your relationship with them. Focusing on what you want from them and not what you can be to them is a shortcut to problems. One needs to show respect before one can expect it in return. And learning how to be respectful to your children and their goals and desires is the fastest path to getting them to start showing you respect in return. If you find it a challenge to create a positive bond with your child, consider actively trying to pair or connect yourself with your child's most valued reinforcers. Be the person who makes these fun things available to them. Whenever possible, take part in these activities, or at least work hard not to take any of the fun out of them. Even if your interests and joys don't line up with theirs, know that the goal of building rapport is important enough to do some fun things with them and things that you may not enjoy yourself, but in the long run, you will gain enough from them that it'll create a positive relationship that you can build on, and it'll all be time well spent. In the Just 7 Steps parenting program, we want to teach parents to strive to always be at least 75% fun and or valuable for their kids. We want them to leave no more than, say, 25% of their time together for expectations, critique, and criticism. If I'm going to spend only 1 minute with my daughters, I want to make sure that at least 45 seconds of that time is positive or even fun, and that no more than 15 seconds is me asking of something from them. Make time in your day for doing fun things with them and be willing to follow their lead. Give them opportunities during fun activities to be a leader and a decider, to have more control over their environment and even some control in your relationship. This will go a long way to minimizing their need for control when you have to ask for things in return. If you know you have to talk to your child about something they've done wrong, find a way to start and end that conversation on positives that they've done so that they see you can correct them without only focusing on their mistakes. And that leads us seamlessly into the second important factor in building better relationships with your children. That is trying not to focus only on the negative. Parenting is about building new skills and abilities to your child. To build skills, you need to increase good behavior and positive communication. If you only focus on the mistakes your child makes and work to correct them, you are actually not building anything, but merely tearing down their behavior, and along with it, the feelings of self-worth and quite possibly your relationship to boot. Try to focus on motivating your child to better behavior and then reinforcing that behavior with positive interactions that will help you build that 75% fun and value that we talked about in the Just 7 Steps approach. Try to avoid focusing only on the mistakes you want to correct. And if you have to correct something, always couch it with a few positive comments to soften that blow. The more time you spend talking to your kids about their mistakes, the more they will start to see you as a negative in their environment, as well as see themselves in a more negative light. That doesn't mean you can't correct behavior or even say no to them. I mean, you need to, but you also need to make sure that this is not a majority of what you do. Keeping corrections and instructions to under 25% of your interactions allows for you to ask for what you need without ever becoming a generalized punisher to your child, someone who only comes out to demand compliance and knock heads. Instead, focusing on keeping a 75% ratio of fun and positive praise and reinforcement allows you to become seen as a generalized reinforcer, someone who brings with you light and love and fun, even though on occasion you will have expectations of them as well. The third aspect involved in building better relationships with your children is to always say what you mean and mean what you say. Children can get used to anything if they can count on it. You can get away with being a more permissive parent or a more strict parent, but only if you're able to be consistent and fair with your expectations. It is the unknown or unexpected that causes children the most stress. When you say something to your kids, you should try very hard not to go back on those words. If they are consequences you promise, whether good consequences or bad, give them the consequences as you said you would. If your words are an offer for a fun activity, be sure that you do the work you need to so that that activity can be available to them at the time you stated. To be good at this, you will need to become more careful with the words you use and what you promise. So staying calm and making carefully selected statements that are easy for you to follow through with is always the best way to go. Then, committing yourself to the idea that your actions have to match your words and vice versa will allow you to be able to consistently be a source of trusted information to your children and will help you build that better relationship you desire. The real trick is learning how to be fun and spontaneous with your kids without losing the predictability they need to know how to respond to you. Making life fun as much as you can and limiting your corrections, critiques, and even instructions to just 25% of your interaction time is a standard that you can set to help you meet this goal. The final aspect in building a positive relationship with your children that I want to talk about today is to be comfortable filling their lives with positive reinforcement. Positive reinforcement is defined as anything that is added to the environment after a behavior that makes that behavior more likely. If a child offers to help out their sibling, you should never feel uncomfortable making sure that after they're done, they end up experiencing something that they would deem as being of value. It could just be praise or access to a game or hugs and kisses, but it truly can be anything at all that they might be happy to have available to them. Reinforcement is not about promising good things as bribes for cooperation. It is about seeing the positive behavior that you would like to see more of and making sure that in one way or another, it proves successful or valuable to the child so they will continue to use that behavior in the future. Let's take a moment and talk about sharing as a way to explain the value of positive reinforcement. Sharing is a tough skill to teach young children. The reason for this is that it is usually based around asking the child to share something that is of value to them with someone else. And that means if the child has 2 cookies and they're asked to share, it might mean giving up one of their cookies to the other person. Now, sharing might be a behavior you want to teach your child to use. So you are going to have to find a way to make sharing worth it to your child. Or in other words, get them to lead to some sort of benefit. So the first thing a behavior analyst would do is try to analyze what benefit comes to us when we share. What is the value I get from seeing myself with 2 cookies and my peer with 1 and thinking, I should give them one of those cookies? Again, this can be very hard for young children because the value of eating the cookies is so high that the value of sharing has to somehow be greater than the value lost by losing a cookie. And that's not an easy task. But what do we get out of it? Well, when I share with others, I get positive feelings from having done something for another person because I've learned to appreciate that in myself. I might be benefited by the other person smiling and choosing to play with me more, offering me more fun than I would have had if I had kept the cookie to myself. That person might also become a friend who is more likely to share with me when they have opportunities that I don't have. All of these are reasonable expectations for why I might choose to share a cookie I'd like to eat with someone else. But if you look at those reinforcers, they are generally not immediate, and they are generally things that I have to learn to appreciate. And because your child is sharing the cookie at the moment and hasn't learned to appreciate the feeling they'll get from it yet, you are hoping that they can benefit enough from the other child's appreciation to want to share with them again. Well, the other child's appreciation leading to sharing or more play in return is not always going to come immediately. So it can't be counted on to affect your child's behavior in the future. And this is why teaching children to happily share with others is so challenging and something many kids never learn to do or to benefit from completely. But by understanding that positive reinforcement is anything that happens after a behavior that gives that behavior value, making it more likely to occur again, we know that anything we do after your child shares that is deemed a positive by your child could be used to reinforce the behavior of making it more likely to keep happening. So even though we might not be able to count on the natural motivators in the moment, we might be able to use alternative reinforcers to give the child the experience of sharing that leads them to positive outcomes. For instance, when I see a child with 2 cookies share with one and sharing one with a peer, I could come over and give that child 2 more cookies. Wow, that might make the concept of sharing more appealing at the moment. I might choose to come over and praise the child and offer to play a game with them, because I always like to play games with kids who share. So even though the other child might not be able to reinforce the behavior with more play themselves in the moment, I can potentially make that connection with adding my play after the behavior. But not only will offering extrinsic positive reinforcement give the behavior of sharing more value to the child, but the natural reinforcers that will hopefully become the reason why a child continues to share as they grow are also going to be experienced by the child. The child shared with will likely smile. They will become a friend who offers more value to your child's life, and eventually those natural reinforcers can take over the responsibility of continuing to make sharing valuable to your child. Now, if you as a parent are not willing or able to use the extrinsic reinforcement to give your child the experience of sharing as valuable and something worth doing, your child might not experience the natural reinforcers enough for them to ever take hold. So realize that the goal of positive reinforcement is not to create a bunch of unnatural contingencies to get your kids to work for reward, but rather to be used as a bridge to natural contingencies that you can't make available to them without that bridge. And remember, there are other benefits as well. Anything that you add to your child's environment after a good behavior choice will not only increase the likelihood of that behavior happening again in the future, allowing it to connect with natural reinforcers, but it also pairs you as the giver of good things and someone your child would want to spend more time with and learn from. Positive reinforcement is truly a win-win when you understand how to use it and have a goal for fading over time toward a more natural reinforcers as your child grows and develops. There really is no downside to using positive reinforcement, as it builds important skills, helps connect them to natural reinforcers, and continues the job of positioning you as a positive giver of good things to your child, helping them to see you as someone worth being with. It will also begin to give them good reasons to want to cooperate with your requests as well, because they know you have the skill and ability and willingness to use positive reinforcement. And one of the best ways to use positive reinforcement for your child is to understand the overriding goal of most of your child's behavior choices. That's why it is often beneficial to understand your child's behavior type, and how to work with that behavior type. If you are interested, I've created a 10-question quiz available right now on my website that you can take to help you determine your child's specific behavior type. There are 4 different possibilities, and depending on where your child falls, you will receive a video explanation of their behavior and what it means to you and your parenting. So go to my website, just7steps.com/quiz, and take my behavior types quiz today. If your biggest concern right now is building a better relationship with your children, then remember the following 4 pieces of behavioral advice. Be worth being around by pairing yourself with your child's favorite things and being 75% fun and value over only 25% work or expectation. Try not to focus on the negatives of your child's behavior, but instead work to build their behavior through focusing on the targets you want to motivate. Be sure to make it a priority to always say what you mean and mean what you say, and let your actions always line up with the words that you use. And finally, don't be afraid to use positive reinforcement after behavior you want to see more of. It increases behavior and builds you up as a valuable partner in your child's life, someone they will want to spend more time with, learning from. I hope to see you at the website soon. That's just7steps.com/quiz for the free behavior types quiz and your video explaining your child's behavior type and what you can do to help within that child's main goals. If you like this podcast, I would love it if you would leave me a comment, give me a thumbs up, share this podcast with others who might benefit, and please subscribe to my channel for more parenting content. I'll see you right here next week, but only if you subscribe.